It is Ekadashi. It is the disappearance day of Gaura Das Babaji, and it is, was it Bhishma Panchaka, the last 5 days of Kartik, which are understood to be especially potent. So it's a grand slam. We got 4 things going for us here, especially auspicious. So we'll open with just a couple short prayers for invocation. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane. This is the pranam mantra for Srila Gaurikishore Das Babaji. Namo Gaura Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vripalamba Rasambode Padambujayate Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Srila Gaurikishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who is renunciation personified. He is always merged in a feeling of separation and intense love of Krishna. So. Oftentimes, when you hear Srila Prabhupada speak on these different holy days, festival days, my thought about it is that Prabhupada was so fixed in the order of his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, to preach Krishna consciousness, that at every opportunity it seemed like Prabhupada was simply giving us just the very simple truth, but very profound. And some devotees are very eloquent and being able to narrate the Lord's pastimes, or like Dhiro Prabhu is really expert at presenting historical Vaishnavism, the personalities. I'm a little weak in that area. What I'd like to focus on and trying to invoke Srila Gaurikishore Das Babaji's mercy is his teachings. Now, he was a Babaji. He was a very renounced person who, we have this term Goshthiananda, someone who's very much in the public sphere, presenting Krishna consciousness. And in Christianity, there's a term like a friar. A friar is one who's sort of living in the world, and a monk is sort of like living in a monastery and not really involved. They're more of an internal cultivation of their spirituality, whereas a friar is more active in the world. So they both have their place. And so Srila Gaurikishore Das Babaji was, as the pranam mantra said, renunciation personified. He was a very, very austere. He was married in his earlier life, and his wife died at, I don't know at what age, but he went to Vrindavan and lived a very austere life, and eventually lived in Mayapur. And so I do have like sort of an outline of his life, but like I said, in the time that we have, and Kirtan Yagya Prabhu spoke about Gaurikishore Das Babaji this morning for a while. So again, I'd like to focus on his teachings, what he really emphasized. Now, the external life of a devotee is also very instructive, but as we speak about, there's 2 forms of the guru. There's the vapu, the physical form, and then the vani, the instructions, which relatively speaking, the instructions are more important because they endure beyond the physical manifestation of someone's body. So there's 5, and we'll try to reference some shastric support of these The first is he emphasized chanting the holy name purely and constantly. And the first thing that came to my mind when I read that is that chanting the holy name purely, there are different stages of chanting. There's stage of namaparad, or offensive chanting, and there's namabas, which means a clearing stage. And then there's the Shuddhanam, the pure chanting, which is free from the offenses. So the first two stages, namaparad and namabasa, the distinguishing feature between the two is the namaparad, there's offenses, but one's not trying to stop, or is just ignorant of the offense. It's very interesting. I heard this devotee in ISKCON Silicon Valley. His name is Bhagavat Ashraya. He said there are 4 stages of learning. There's unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. You're ignorant. And in your ignorance, you don't know what you don't know. Then it moves to conscious incompetence. You're becoming aware of how ignorant you are. Then it moves to conscious competence, where you're working on working through your ignorance. You're consciously aware of your ignorance, but you're working on, and then it moves to unconscious competence, where you don't even have to think about it anymore. It just becomes a part of you. And that's, Diro and I are rehearsing for our George Harrison concert. And when you're playing an instrument and you practice sufficiently, you no longer have to think about what you're playing. They call it muscle memory. And when you're not having to consciously think about what you're doing, you're able to enter more into an emotional state, If your consciousness is just focused on, okay, now I got to put my hand here, now I have to do this, and I got to hit these buttons, you can't really put your heart as much into it because you're splayed out, like you're thinking about all these other things. So chanting without offense, and the very word aparad, aparad, something that goes against devotion. So Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji was emphasizing that. There's a great quote here. I'll have to pull this one out. He was on one level, you could say he was illiterate. He didn't read or write, but he was known to be had such deep realization of the scriptures. One learned scholar once tried to engage him in a scriptural debate. And Gaurkishore Das Babaji said, "I don't know any Shastra. My only Shastra is the holy name of Krishna." He explained that book learning without humility and devotion is useless. If one chants purely, the Vedas dance in his heart. So that's very inspiring, because I'm always impressed when devotees can speak very eloquently and give a lot of Shastric reference. We had Ashram Maharaj recently here and gave some amazing classes that were very deep in Shastra, and it's quite inspiring. I don't have that kind of brain, I have a fairly good memory, but I'm not able to really hold a lot of information at once in my head. I'm not a good multitasker. Like, give me one thing to concentrate on and let me just do that. So, like, I was not a very good cook, like cooking an offering, especially like the Raj Bhoga offering, like I'd have to go in like 5 hours, ahead of the offering, and I would still be late. And I was better at like cooking the Sunday feast. I'll cook the halava, or something, just give me one thing to concentrate on. So along with this idea of chanting without offense, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the predecessor acharya of Gorkha Babaji, he sings a song called Gurudev, and the second stanza says, Gurudev, O Lord and Master, please invest in me the power to honor all living beings properly. Only then will I sing the holy names in great ecstasy, free of offenses. So this is a key to coming to the stage of at least namabhas, where we're aware of our offenses, again, sort of this conscious competence. But it's by the mercy of the holy name, cleansing the heart of these anarthas, that we come to this stage of nishta, or firm faith. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes the third shloka of the Shikshastakam, Trinadapi Sunichena Taloriva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. This is indicative of reaching the stage of nishta, or firm faith, in Krishna consciousness, where the principal anarthas have been uprooted. There may be some residual, and he describes it to be like you extinguish a fire and there's still some smoke, So the principal anarthas have been extinguished at the stage of nishta, but occasionally a devotee will still exhibit some material tendency, but it's not very serious. So I thought that was something to meditate on in terms of being able to chant without offense, is to really cultivate amanina manadena. And the next emphasis in his teachings was to serve Krishna, and it's very much related to what we were just speaking about, chanting the holy name purely and constantly. Serve Krishna with humility, not for recognition. So I'd like to bring up a word that we all use a lot. Every time you offer your obeisances, we say, Nama, Om, Vishnu, Nama. So many prayers, it's Tulsi prayers, Namo, Namo, Tulasi, Are we really being mindful of what we're doing when we're singing these mantras? The word Nama, Na means not, and Ma means mine, or means the false ego. I, me, and mine. Nama. Every time we bow down our head, we can be more mindful to think, what am I doing here? I am recognizing nothing is mine. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatam jagat tena chaktena bunjita magrida kasyasvid dhanam. Everything animate or inanimate within the universe is owned and controlled by the Lord. One should only accept what's been provided for oneself, and not take more than what's one's quota is, knowing well to whom everything belongs. So Nama, nothing is mine. Everything belongs to Krishna. Even my body. My body. No, it's Krishna's body. It's a rental car. It's a gift specifically given for self-realization. We have this developed consciousness that's unique to the human form, and it's specifically meant for, in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, it's described that kamasya nendriya pritir lavo jiveta yavata jivasya tattvavigyasa labhaya, no, what is it? Something karma be. Anyways, It says, life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry into the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. And prior to that, Sutta Goswami, he says that the our dharma, our occupational duties in varnashram are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for hearing the message of the personality of Godhead. So, nama, this term mindfulness is a pretty trendy thing these days. It's been for a while, but to be more mindful of what we're doing. And there was a devotee who had been involved in some, I don't know if it was an accident or perhaps some health challenge where he was in a wheelchair and he could no longer bow down and offer his obeisances. And he said, I never realized how important it is to be able to bow your head down on the floor. Like, you don't know what you got till it's gone. So I would just offer as a message from Srila Gaurkishora Das Babaji, be very mindful of this act of bowing down. In the Krishna book I was listening to in the story of Sudan Vipra, Prabhupada's describing how you can perfect your life just by learning how to bow your head down. And in three ways. The greatest level of devotee, the Uttamadhikari, he sees the Lord in everyone's heart. And he's constantly offering obeisances to everyone. And Prabhupada says that we can't jump to that stage immediately. But for the Madhyamadhikari, they see all Vaishnavas as representatives of Krishna. And for the Kanishadhikari, they see Krishna and bow down, and therefore we bow down. Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction, he describes the Krishneti yasya giritam manasa diyeksha dikshasti chet pranatabis. Bow down to the Vaishnava, someone who's taken initiation, is engaged in worshiping the deity, they're worshipable. And for the Kanishta, Prabhupada says that you bow your head down to the deity and to the spiritual master. And he says, but you can become perfect just by learning how to bow your head down. There was a person who Prabhupada was speaking about this necessity for bowing down and humility. And the man said, so it was a guest, and he said, I just don't feel the need to bow down. And Prabhupada said, you have diagnosed your own disease. You must bow down. Everyone has to bow down to death, to old age, to disease. We get a little tiny infection and you're knocked down, And, okay, so enough of that one. So 3, avoid hypocrisy and false renunciation. So a big theme, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, his disciple, spoke extensively about the need for simplicity. Simplicity is Vaishnavism. A simple, and in, in the atomic, periodical chart of, elements?
Periodic table.
Yeah. So they have these different compounds. There are simple compounds and there are complex compounds. A simple compound is not, it's one thing. A complex compound is a mixture. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Vyavisayatmaka buddhir eke ha kurunandana. Single-pointed attention, resolute in purpose. To make advancement in this path of devotional service, one has to have this focus. And then in the purport, Prabhupada describes this very focused faith that just by serving Krishna, everything will be done. All my obligations in this world to family, society, country, so on. If I serve Krishna, the example is watering the root of a tree. All the branches are satisfied. So, but it requires full surrender. If one is not fully surrendered, there are so many other obligations. There are so many other dharmas that are required before one. So this false renunciation, hypocrisy. If someone thinks they're on a very elevated platform, I'm fully surrendered to Krishna, I have no obligations to anyone, I'm so surrendered, we have to be careful. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mityachara sa uchite, one may restrain the senses and mind from sense objects, but within his mind, he dwells. And this pride, we're talking about nama, no pride. It's like the word mada. Mada means pride. So it's related to that ma. Nama, no pride, no false ego, nothing is mine. That's a very elevated platform, to really be in that state of having no pride, no sense of proprietorship. And if we falsely think by some external show of renunciation, but within we're maybe prideful, thinking I'm better than others because I'm renounced. And that was Sudam Vipra. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes that Sudam Vipra he was very renounced. He was very austere. He was practically starving. His bones are sticking out. He was so austere. He didn't have very fancy clothes. But the Acharya says that there was a little bit of pride in his renunciation. So Krishna, to curb that pride, he gave him all this opulence. He had to, and to his credit, he didn't become diverted from his service to Krishna. He used it all in Krishna's service. So one can be externally renounced, but still maintaining some of that false ego, that pride. So the fourth thing is seek only association with sincere devotees. Asat Sanga Tyage Vaishnavacharya, that's Lord Chaitanya was asked, how do you recognize, Vaishnava? Well, and Jiro Prabhu answered a question that, who was it who asked? Indupati, that one day he said, you were talking about the difference between Gyan and Vigyan. How do we understand someone has Vigyan? And the first symptom is detachment from material sense gratification. Jnana vairagya yuktaya. Vasudeve bhagavati bhakti yoga prayojita janachat yashu vairagyam jnanam chad yarahoitukam. By rendering devotional service, automatically one achieves knowledge and detachment. And Lord Chaitanya, there's a famous verse from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, it says that Krishna has appeared in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach real knowledge, his own devotional service, and detachment from everything that does not foster Krishna consciousness. So one of the important lifestyle changes, if you will, of a serious spiritual practitioner is to be very cautious about our association, especially meaning intimate association. It doesn't mean you can't interact with people, it's just but intimate association where you're really opening your heart, sharing meals, offering, more intimate association. And finally, depend wholly on Krishna for everything. So this is surrender. And we'll do another little Sanskrit analysis. We did nama. Now let's look at a common word in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna uses for surrender is prapadyate. Then there's two verses that specifically come to my mind. The first one is in the 4th chapter. He says, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So the word prapadyate, pra is the prefix means forward. And pad, like a podiatrist, means your feet. So prapadyate means to step forward. It means progress. And the prefix pro is directly related to pra. It means forward. And progress, gress comes from, I think it's a Latin word, gradi, and it means to step, or it means gait. So progress, that's something that maybe we haven't really considered in terms of surrender. Like surrender, that means to like, I surrender, I give up. There's that aspect. Rupa Goswami describes, accepting things that are favorable, rejecting things that are unfavorable. Or we're talking about, giving up the association of people who are not seriously pursuing their relationship with God. But there is that feature of surrender that means to move forward, to make progress, to face Krishna, to turn towards Krishna. And what's that famous verse, Krishna Bahirmukha, Japati Adare. As soon as one turns away from Krishna, immediately the material energy slaps you down. Japati Adare. Krishna Bahirmukha, like I turn away from Krishna. So surrender just means to turn back towards Krishna. Take shelter of Krishna. Another word for surrender, sharanagati. Sharana means shelter. Gati means go. Where do you go for shelter? When the weather's terrible, it's raining, we get some monsoon storm, you run for cover. Or like with, Giridhari, the wonderful Leela of Govardhan, worship in Govardhan Hill and devastating rainfall of Vrindavan. It's so emblematic of surrender. Indra's throwing down thunderbolts and so pillars of rain. And it's this taking shelter of Krishna. So surrender is not like a negative word, like you failed, surrender, you lost the battle. What the real battle is within our own heart is giving up this false ego. That's the surrender. That's the nama. Reminding that nothing is mine, everything belongs to Krishna, and it should be engaged in Krishna's service. It's positive renunciation. It's not just like if you're driving by the Bank of America and you say, I renounce all the money in this bank. It means nothing. It never belonged to you in the first place. You can't renounce something that never belonged to you. So everything animate or inanimate in the universe is owned and controlled by the Lord. You can't renounce it. It never belonged to you. But you can recognize that it's Krishna's property and you can engage it in Krishna's service. That's real renunciation, yukta vairagya. It's not an external thing. Although Gaurkishore Das Babaji did live a very externally renounced life, but the real renunciation is this giving up this pride, this sense of, I'm the center. Krishna's the center. It's like when we offer artik and you're circling, the deity with the various articles. It's like Krishna's in the center. Like every time you offer incense, Krishna's the center. And if you're eccentric, that means you're, actually the word, we shouldn't be afraid of the word sin. Sin means, in Hebrew, the word sin is chet. It means to miss the mark. It's an archery term. Miss the mark. So if we try to put ourselves in the center, that means that's sin. Even if you're pious, you're politely sinful. So there's nothing really to be proud of to be pious. Like, I'm still the center. I'm better than other people. I'm pious. I'm religious. And there's I don't know the verse. There's something, I believe it's a biblical reference that, God would rather have, what was it? I might have it backwards. He'd rather spend time with 10 repentant sinners than one arrogant, pious person. God is not really interested in your piety. It's not like, you're going to go back to Godhead and, there's just going to be all these pious people. It's people who have given up their eccentricity. They've put Krishna in the center. So this false renunciation, this artificially posing oneself as being superior to others because one is a moral, virtuous person. I mean, certainly it's important to be virtuous and to be moral. There is dharma, to be honest, to be self-controlled, to be respectful, all the virtuous qualities that Krishna describes in the 13th chapter, the items of knowledge. Krishna gives all these, wonderful qualities, disposition of character, beginning with humility. But Prabhupada in the purport, he said that the most important one is, I can't remember the Sanskrit, avyabhicharani bhakti or something, like undeviated devotion. Prabhupada says that without that, all these other qualities are not really that important. It's like so many zeros. It's about devotion. And so Krishna is concerned with our devotion. He's not concerned with our piety. In fact, the gopis, the highest level of bhakti, they were apparently irreligious, going off in the middle of the night to see a young boy in the forest. That's pretty sketchy. But their surrender was such, and so depending wholly on Krishna for everything. I'll give up my so-called piety. Or the gopis, when they were asked, was it Narada Muni? And Krishna said, I have a headache. The only thing that's going to cure my headache is the dust from the feet of my devotees. And Narada was asking all these different personalities, no, we're not going to give the dust of our feet. We'll go to hell if we give our dust of our feet. And the gopis said, Krishna's got a headache? I'll go to hell just to relieve Krishna's headache. So, and who was it? The brahmanas, the yogic brahmanas, after they realized they had really blown it and not provided the foodstuff to the cowherd boys, and the wives, the simple-hearted wives, they weren't big scholars. They had simple devotion. They were actually the real devotees, not the externally religious, pious fellows. And they did that famous, to hell with our, performing sacrifices, to hell with our austerities, we couldn't even figure it out when God himself came to us and asked us for some food in the form of his friends. We were so blinded with pride and arrogance that we are so pious and religious. We're so foolish. So, all right, well, I think that's about it. And what time do we got here? 5:20. And we go to 5:30? So we have 10 minutes. Anyone have a comment or question? Yes, Prabhu.
No, that's true. Nothing.
Yeah, he posted a video. He's like a Hindu influencer or something. I don't know if everything she says is what we agree with, but it was really powerful because she was just showing how in India everything is sacred, right? Like the rivers, the forests, the cows, and so everybody is offering prayers or doing rituals. So she was kind of connecting how rituals and responsibility were separated at a certain point. It just made me think in your lecture how, because they were saying how like all this sewage was going into the rivers, or the trees were being cut down, so, I just think what you're saying is very important, because the responsibility that comes with being a devotee, it's not just the rituals, it's the responsibility. So I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, we have the lineage now, this Guru Parampara, Gaurkishore Das Babaji's disappearance day, reflecting on, we have a responsibility, and Urmila Devi gave a really wonderful offering on Prabhupada's disappearance day. She was talking about, I think there's something like a little askew. A lot of devotees think that, becoming Krishna conscious, becoming a pure devotee is like impossible. It's like too lofty. It's like this. Prabhupada wanted us to become pure devotees. He expected us to become pure devotees, and we're not going to, usurp the position of the acharyas, but we're supposed to have some realization of Krishna to share with people. And that's the glory of the Guru Paramparas, the potency of the Guru Parampara, that even, I always think of that Frosty the Snowman it was an animated thing back in like 1950s, and there was the island of the misfit toys. They had like a bird had a broken wing, or there was it was a Burl Ives was the snowman. It was Rudolph the Red-Nosed, it was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Yeah. And Rudolph had to, and I have some kind of little thing on my nose that started sprouting, and I thought, I got a Rudolph the Red-Nosed. So like Rudolph was all bummed out. I got this glowing nose, and then he was like the reject of the reindeer community or whatever, And it turns out, it was his glowing nose was because there was a big storm, and Santa had to deliver the toys, so Rudolph's nose illuminated. So, I read this great thing. This priest was saying, he did this retreat in France to this, it was sort of an ode to the Saint Therese of Lisieux, and he said that we should love people not to say despite their faults. We talk about tolerating. I'll tolerate you. No, we should love them because of their faults. Because their faults help me develop unconditional love. I have to practice loving someone who's not perfect. That's how Krishna sees us. We're not perfect. We're full of every goofy possible thing. And Krishna has unconditional love for us, and we are supposed to emulate that. We are supposed to develop unconditional love. So, love, if you're waiting for people to be perfect before you can love them, you're going to be a very lonely person. Yes, Prabhu.
It reminds me, there's this statement, I'm not sure the origin. England, I love thee despite thy faults. And then Satsvarup Maharaj paraphrased that. ISKCON, I love thee despite thy faults, with thy flag flying above thy mortgage temple building. And what to speak of all the other.
Paramahamsa, Gaurkishore Das Babaji, he's a Paramahamsa. What does a Paramahamsa mean? A swan-like person. And what's the quality of the swan is they can extract milk from a mixture of milk and water. And I've heard that they have some kind of enzyme in their mouth that curdles the milk. Like when they suck in the mixture of milk and water, it curdles the milk. They can separate the milk from the water. So a Paramahamsa is, they just accept the good qualities of others. They don't look at the faults, because that's all on the material level. That's all on the level of the body and the mind, and that's not the person. That's just the covering. of the person. And that's how Krishna sees us. He doesn't care how goofy we are. He knows what's going on. And yet he loves us. And Putana, who's the you could say the worst of the worst, came to kill Krishna, and Krishna accepted, she offered me her breast for milk. She's my mother. He just accepted that little service. So it's one of the, there's a purport in the first canto, Prabhupada says, it is the quality of the great thinkers to take nectar from a stalk of poison, gold from a dirty place, accept a wife from an obscure family. I can't remember what the last one was, there was 4 of them. That's spiritual consciousness, is to see,
Good advice from the fool.
Yeah. Is to go beneath the superficiality. I mean, isn't it like, it's kind of insulting to tell somebody, you're really superficial, And that's if we are being put off by Hare Krishna.
I have a comment.
Yes, please.
This is one Vaishnava has analyzed that the conditioned soul, if someone has rendered a great amount of service, then the conditioned will think, oh yes, but there is some fault and you have done wrong. Even if there was one little tiny fault. Whereas Krishna, if a devotee renders some tiny little bit of service, he thinks, oh, that is very great. And if someone commits a tiny little offense, the conditioned soul is like, just see, you have committed an offense. Whereas even if one commits a great offense, Krishna says, oh, it is nothing very much. It's a little thing. Main thing is he is serving.
Yeah,
That's the difference between the conditioned soul and Krishna.
yeah. So again, going back to Urmila's offering, she was really sort of lighting a fire under everyone. Like, it's time to step up our game. Like, we need to be. The world is in a mess. I haven't been listening to the news, thank God. That's probably why I'm a lot happier. But, I was speaking with my brother yesterday, and he was so like, oh God, this administration, this, that problem, this. And I said, I chanted the glories of a Michael Jackson song. He didn't write he sang it, but it's called Man in the Mirror. He said, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Like, we want to point, the famous thing, you one finger pointing, you got 3 pointing back at you. We're worried about all the problems of the world, but like, how about, looking at the man in the mirror? Like, Vaisheshika Prabhu said, our religion is finding our own faults. I was in Dallas, or Houston when you were there. Said, imagine, you have that, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he described like that, we should be not concerned with the faults of others, we should be looking, I'm too busy trying to figure out the work that I need to do, like the problem, the anarthas in my heart. I don't have time to be worrying about everybody else's anarthas. And if I'm not focused like that, that means that's the definition of sin. We're off the mark. We're missing the mark. And no matter how pious we are externally, if within our heart we're finding, fault in others and focusing on their shortcomings, then that's an aparad. That's worse than sin. That's an offense to the Lord. Krishna says, you surrender unto me, I will deliver you from all sinful reaction. Sin is not I mean, it's not, we have to be mindful to live a sattvic life. But the aparad, that's serious. Krishna, there's no fooling around. And I was talking with Tara today. We had a meeting on our sage group. And he said, somebody was asking about advice. There was somebody who was going through some difficult period, and they had some grievances with ISKCON, and she's like a therapist, and I'm wondering how I'm going to navigate this person, And Tara said something along the lines of, when it comes to Vaishnava aparad, I don't want to hear it. And I'll end on this. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, this was brought up by Sheshika Prabhu in one of his Make Japa Great Again clips. So this is Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. He's being described, I don't know if it's Krishnadas Kaviraj or who's describing. He would not listen to blasphemy of a Vaishnav, nor would he listen to talk of a Vaishnav's misbehavior. He knew only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. He did not understand anything else. So in the purport, Prabhupada said, even if another Vaishnav was actually at fault, Raghunath Bhatta would not criticize him. He saw only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. That is the position of a Mahabhagavat. Actually, even if one is serving Maya, in a higher sense, he is also a servant of Krishna. Because Maya is the servant of Krishna. Anyone serving Maya serves Krishna indirectly. Therefore, it is said, there's a quote from another Chaitanya Charitamrita verse, some accept him, the Lord, whereas others do not. Yet everyone is his servant. One who does not accept him, however, will be ruined by his sinful activities. But there's still, we have the term non-devotee. I mean, Krishna Bhakta, Asat Sanga Chaga, we just said, certainly that's there. But for me, I'm thinking, I'd rather just call them unripe devotees. You've got an unripe mango and a ripe mango. They're both mangoes, but one's unripe. So the conditioned souls, I would prefer just to look at them as unripe devotees and treat them with the dignity that a devotee of the Lord deserves. And people respond. I got this little kick that I've been on. I have these butterscotch candies, and I offer them to my deities. And when I go on the bus, and there's all these homeless people and disheveled people, and I've been just giving them this butterscotch candy. And these people, they just light up. I mean, you look at it, don't judge a book by its cover. These people light up, and almost all of them say, God bless you. And Jesus said, whatever you do for the least of the people, you do for me. So, yeah, we have equal vision. Vijavanaya Sampane Brahmane Gahaksi. Yeah, but we're a little more equal to the people who don't, bother us as much, So, we have to, and for me, it's been probably one of the best things that ever happened to me was to get rid of my vehicle and have to ride public transportation. Because I've had to, initially I was just like, this is psychologically damaging, being on the bus with all these insane people, And it was like this heavy, disgusting mode of ignorance, And then I just started passing out these butterscotch candies. And the people are just like, thank you so much. God bless you. And it's really like Krishna is just like speaking loudly, like, this is what you're supposed to do. Be compassionate. Don't judge people by their external circumstance. And these people are humble. I mean, they're beat down. I mean, some of them are so messed up on the drugs, I don't interact with them. But Most of the people that I interact with, they're very nice. They're so beat down by the material energy. When somebody shows some kindness, they just like, wow. You know, you show them some dignity. They're in the most undignified position. And if we show them some dignity, they just like, you made my, I can't tell you how many times people said, you made my day. They're, you know, they got all sorts of weird paraphernalia and disheveledness, and then they'll look at me, you made my day. Radhanath Swami told a story about he once stumbled into a leper colony when he was doing his pilgrimage to India. Came into a leper colony, and there was a mother. You know, her limbs were, you know, the whole thing, you know, just disfigured and this and that, and can't remember the exact how it. She came up to him, and I don't know if she offered him something or. Can't remember what it was, but he just saw in her, she was a mother, and she wanted to offer this motherly love to Radhanath Swami. I don't know if she embraced him or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember he was just saying that the look in that mother's eye, like she just wanted to express love. Okay, I'm going to babble and choke up and. I'll leave it up to our MC here if we want to carry on. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just.
It was just, you just reminded me, it was similar to when I go to the nursing college.
Yeah.
And like I teach charity over there now, and the same thing I say to them, oh, you made my day, thank you. And they say, no, you made my day. And
Yeah.
that you made my day. So, and you know, they're can hardly move sometimes. So it's just that same, you know, vulnerable people are still very.
They're people.
Yeah.
They're souls. They're dear to Krishna. And, you know, we can make a lot of advancement by helping these most vulnerable people. You know. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.